Hi, I'm Cliff, and today we're going to be talking about military space aid travel. Today, as I make this video, it's Monday, September 23rd, and as I look out across the space aid world of military space aid travel, I'm seeing very clearly that Category 6 travelers are catching flights successfully. They're not experiencing significant delays or backups. So, for those of you who may not have a lot of experience, the fall space aid travel season is on. And that means, for all intents and purposes, that the PCS season and its competition for available flights is over. It's behind us, folks. And as I said in the previous video where I outlined in some detail what the PCS season is, if you click here, you can watch that video and learn everything that you need to know about PCS season. But the bottom line is PCS season runs roughly from mid-May through mid-September, and we're past it at this stage. So as of now, the vast bulk of PCS moves have been successfully completed. Kids are back in their DoD schools or whatever school they go to, and things are calming down within the space aid universe. That makes fall an excellent time for successful space aid travel with fewer hassles, fewer delays, and much less competition. What I wanted to do with this video is take a look at some of the roll call reports for some of the major space aid terminals that have the potential to become impacted by competition. This is a good way to get a picture for yourself what the level of competition looks like in advance of taking a trip yourself. Now, here's my disclaimer. Space aid travel is always a roll of the dice. As most of us know, space aid is always a gamble because missions change. Aircraft and crew requirements can absolutely impact a space aid trip at any time of the year. But having a good space aid experience requires research, and that should allow you to make decisions that put the odds of success in your favor. So we're going to drill down into the Air Mobility Command webpage and go to the individual passenger terminals page and look specifically at their roll call reports and just talk about what we're seeing there. And hopefully this can give you a way to gauge the level of competition and your likelihood of success at your target passenger terminals. I'm on the West Coast, so I'm going to start with Travis Passenger Terminal. And here we're going to compare the columns for the seats released versus the seats used. And I'll go ahead and put a bracket around each of those. And as we review those, the first thing that I'm looking at is, of the seats released, how many of them were actually used? And as we look through the columns here, you can see that for the most part, all of these flights left with some empty seats, with the exception of the 14 September flight to Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. That particular flight had all seats utilized. And if we come over here to the competed for the flight column, the number of packs that competed, you can see 41 passengers competed for that flight. Of those that competed, the lowest space aid category was Category 6. So all but 2 of those who competed successfully made it onto the flight and got seats. And as I cross-referenced this with the 30-day report, I observed that this was the Patriot Express. So that's the commercial contracted flight. It's comfortable. Everybody wants to get on it and fly that way. So far and away, the vast majority of people were able to catch flights to their destinations with minimal competition in the last 7 days here at Travis. So now let's go over to Joint Base Pearl Harbor and take a look at what was going on there in sort of the same time frame. As we look through and compare the seats released versus the seats used, we can see that a lot of seats are going unfilled. That alone tells us that there's very minimal competition for seats in this time frame. It tells us that everybody who wanted a seat got a seat to their intended destination. And in some cases, there were up to 57 seats released and no takers, as in the case for this flight to Anderson Air Force Base. Like I said before, I'm looking at the roll call here. Let's take a look at what's going on out of Seattle. These are their Patriot Express flights. And as you can see, there is a lot of competition for these flights Specifically, when we compare the seats released to the seats used, there is only a small handful of seats released here on the 20th of September. No seats released for the 19th of September. But when you get down to the 18th and 16th of September, you had a larger number of seats released. You had seats going empty. That is to say, everybody who competed for those seats on 18 and 16 September actually got a seat. If you were looking to go to Guam from SeaTac on 20 September, you were facing pretty stiff competition. There were 21 passengers that did not get seats. The lowest category selected was Category 3. That was a very highly competitive flight. And so one strategy is to travel to a location where more flights are going to Guam if Guam is your intended destination. And so Hawaii is a major hub. And in this case, I would have looked at a different point of origin to get to Hawaii onto Guam, if Guam was my intended destination. Okay, let's take a look at Yokota, Japan. And again, comparing seats released with seats used, you have a pretty significant number of seats being released and seats going empty. And so the number of passengers competing for seats during this time frame was significantly lower. So competition was lower. Your likelihood of successfully traveling out of Yokota much higher. However, during the full swing of this past PCS season, back in June, I believe it was, there were several reports of Space A travelers becoming stuck in Yokota, Japan because of the level of competition that was happening at that time. So let's take a look at Baltimore Washington International. Again, BWI, Baltimore Washington International, is a civilian international airport. It's very large, and it's a major hub for Space A flights to Germany and back. Here they fly exclusively Patriot Express. And let's get into it and compare the seats released versus the seats used. The 11 September flight to Ramstein, Germany. Again, as you go down the column, as we compare the seats released versus the seats used columns, you can see that everyone who wanted a seat or everyone who competed for a seat in this time frame successfully was seated. Now, I have to point out that for Turkey, Kuwait, and Qatar, those are duty passengers only. So you're not going to see Space A competition for those destinations. I think that in the case of Kuwait, Space A traveler may be able to get sponsored by somebody who is assigned there and authorized to fly in. But by and large, you're not going to see Cat 6 passenger competition for those seats. But looking at this roll call report as a whole, it indicates that the competition is slowing down. Let's go up a little farther north to Dover Air Force Base, Delaware. And again, we're going to compare seats released versus seats used. And just a cursory look down those two columns indicate that clearly there's very little competition here as well. And so this report indicates that every Space A passenger who competed for seats got seated. Again, another indicator of limited competition. And as you can see, Dover Air Force Base is an excellent point of origin for jumping off to Ramstein, Germany. So now let's go ahead and switch over and take a look at Ramstein. Now, in this case, Ramstein is only posting a 24-hour Space A roll call report. And we can see two flights, one to BWI, one to Joint Base Charleston. But the significant thing to look at is the difference between the seats released and seats used. Again, no competition here. So that's a pretty good indicator that flying back from Ramstein right now is less competitive. That's a good indicator that flying back from Ramstein is a pretty good bet right now. So that's my overview on what's going on currently in the Space A world for fall travel. Competition has dropped off. The PCS season is over. So it becomes a very good time for you to make your Space A travel plans. Again, it's always a gamble and there's no guarantees, but it is a good time for you to take a look at Space A travel. Now, according to my YouTube analytics, about 93% of folks who view my videos are unfortunately not subscribed yet. So I'd like to invite you to click that subscribe button, hit the like button as well as the bell to make sure you get notified every time I upload a new video. And doing that helps this channel a lot. So thanks. And if you have any thoughts on fall space A travel or a cool trip report, please let us all know about it in the comments below. I'd be very interested to hear what your experience has been. So thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you on the beaches.